We are gathered here today to discuss a book that challenges one of the oldest and strangest prejudices levied against the Christian faith, the accusation that it lacks manliness. Many people, perhaps even some of you, have encountered the idea that Christianity appeals mainly to our fears, to that part of us which is timid and shrinking, rather than to what is courageous and outspoken. This book, The Manliness of Christ by Hughes, asks a fundamental question. Does Christianity run counter to the conscience of man, which recognizes courage as the foundation of manliness, and manliness as the perfection of human character? Hughes answers with a resounding no. He contends that the final aim of the Christian religion is the perfection of character. Be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, a perfection reached through the faithful following of our Lord's life. And at the heart of that perfection is courage, the true test of courage. We must, Hughes argues, immediately dismiss the idea that manliness is merely animal courage. Animal courage, the determination to have one's own way, coupled with contempt for safety and readiness to risk pain, is valuable, yes, but we share it with the bulldog and the weasel. Nor is true manliness synonymous with sheer physical strength or athleticism. A great athlete may be a brute or a coward, but a truly manly man can be neither. True manliness is found not just in daring, but in self-sacrifice. Think of Sergeant Robert McQuaid, who pulled a younger soldier back from certain death, saying, "You are too young, sir, to be killed," and took the fatal bullets himself. That is the sublime act of self-sacrifice. But there is a courage higher still, required in the constant daily conflict with falsehood and disease and wrong and misery that surrounds us. The highest proof of our courage, Hughes asserts, is loyalty to truth. This leads to the ultimate touchstone of character, obedience to duty. The absolute strength of manliness is achieved when the individual will is surrendered to the divine will. Christ himself gave us this secret: "I have come to do the will of my Father and your Father." The courage of waiting and preparation. If Christ is our model of manliness, where does that courage shine brightest? First, look to his youth. For 30 years, the record of Christ's life is silent, save for one visit to the temple at age 12. We see him then, a boy on the verge of grasping the terrifying majesty of his calling. He goes home to Nazareth and is subject to his parents. Picture the struggle going on for 18 years, the call sounding continually in his ears, yet he patiently waited in obscurity. He made no haste, gave way to no doubt, preparing himself without misgiving. This patient waiting is the true touchstone of preparation for the battle of life. Then came the baptism and the call, immediately followed by the supreme internal test in the wilderness, the temptation. In those 40 days, Christ wrestled with every subtle suggestion to assert himself. He was tempted to use his divine power for purely human needs, turning stones to bread. He was tempted to seek sensational proofs of his title. He was even tempted to compromise, to use the worldly methods that sway men in order to establish God's kingdom quickly. He refused every shortcut, every use of power motivated by self-will or expediency, relying only on God's method. He chose the hard path, emerging from the desert serene and resolute. This was the first great battle and victory of manliness. The courage of unwavering truth. Throughout his ministry, this absolute manliness manifested as unwavering truthfulness. He had to contend not only with the established powers of Rome and Herod, but with the stifling traditions of the Jewish hierarchy, the priests, scribes, and Pharisees. He never wavered or hesitated. He cleansed the temple courts with startling physical daring, then justified the act with a rare courage of speech, stripping away the crowd's idolatry of the physical building. When powerful men like Nicodemus came to him looking for a political king who would prevail against Caesar, Christ offered no balanced phrases or political appeasement. He told the ruler bluntly, "The kingdom is over men's spirits, and you must become a new man to enter it." In periods of popular triumph, when crowds were ready to make him king, Hughes points out that most reformers lower or relax their standard to hold the masses. But Christ never accommodated his teaching. When his own followers encouraged the popular enthusiasm, he constrained them to leave, then spoke the hard truth that offended many of his disciples, who from this time go back and walk no more. Finally, he faced the rulers in Jerusalem. He openly affronted them by healing on the Sabbath and claiming God as his Father. In the final struggle in the temple, Christ met their challenge head-on, concluding with the supreme declaration, "Before Abraham was, I am." Gethsemane and the final triumph. It is in the last act, the Passion, that the accusation of weakness is often raised. Critics point to Gethsemane and say Christ showed physical fear and weakness. But we, who seek empathy and understanding, must look deeper. Christ knew utter loneliness. Even the strongest of his friends would soon deny him. That sense of isolation, plus the anticipation of the unutterable anguish of what was to come, wrung from him the prayer that the cup might pass. This agonizing moment of human weakness, Hughes insists, only enhances the sublime courage of all that followed. Look at his subsequent actions. He meets Judas and the armed crowd in the gate, causing them to fall back before his glance. He stands silent before the Sanhedrin, only speaking to furnish the chief priest with the evidence required to condemn him. He endures the ribaldry and torture of the low crowd, the surgings of the Roman soldiers, and the insults of Herod's court without a flicker of terror or weakness. His final conversation with Pilate, the peasant prisoner, now a mass of filth and blood, confronting the Roman procurator, is unmatched in the world's annals for its sublimity of courage. We must recognize that this most tender and sensitive of the sons of men, who felt the full strain of betrayal, ingratitude, and hatred, bore it all with unshaken steadfastness. The more unflinchingly we apply the test of manliness, of courage, truth, and obedience, the clearer and surer the response comes back to us. Christ rises before us as the perfect ideal, not only of wisdom and tenderness and love, but of courage also, because he was and is the simple truth of God. He stands and will stand to the end of time, the true model of manliness.